Is a testamentary trust irrevocable? First of all, what is a testamentary trust, or testamentary, as some people say? A testamentary trust is a trust that is created by someone's will. A will doesn't have any effect until that person dies. So when the person dies, their will, if it has a testamentary trust in it, through the probate of that will, this new trust, testamentary trust, will be created through the probate process. There are tons of good reasons to create a testamentary trust: protecting assets for spouses against long-term care, to make sure that government benefits continue, to avoid creditors, divorcing spouses, etc., etc. Tons of great reasons. But that's what a testamentary trust is. It's created by somebody's will through the probate process upon their death. Is that trust irrevocable? Yes, it is. It was created through the probate process, and that trust is irrevocable. Having said that, and irrevocable means it stays in effect, right? You can't revoke it. Having said that, that does not mean that that trust continues forever. It continues as long as whatever the terms of the trust said. So, for example, probably the easiest example to understand is a minor's trust or a grandchildren's trust. Those will say often that when the young person reaches a certain age, let's say 25, that they'll get half of what's in the trust. When they reach 30, they'll get the rest of what was in the trust, their share for their benefit. So the trust was created by the will. It was a testamentary, irrevocable trust, and it's in existence for as long as the trust says it should be in existence. Typically with minors, it'll pay out at a certain age when the minor is no longer a minor and they're able to manage their own money. So the trust ends for that beneficiary at that point, and if there's younger siblings, it might continue until they age out as well. Keep in mind that it is not necessary for this trust to end at a certain point. It can continue more along the lines of what is called the Dynasty or Descendants Trust for the lifetime of that beneficiary and beyond. Sometimes people like to do that because they want to make sure that there's benefits for tax purposes, creditor protection purposes, divorcing spouses purposes, that sort of thing. So a trust doesn't necessarily need to pay out when the minor gets to a certain age. It can continue for their lifetime, and then there's a lot of benefits to that. There's also more complications to that as well. There's more tax complications, so we always recommend that people use the services of a CPA who's very familiar with taxes and how to manage taxes on an irrevocable trust. Another kind of trust that is often created by a will, a testamentary trust that's irrevocable, is what we call a supplemental needs trust. That is a special kind of trust that the government recognizes and honors, and money in that trust will not interfere with the beneficiary's eligibility for government needs benefits. So if you have a special needs child, or if you have a spouse who may need long-term care, we're going to want to talk with you about having this type of supplemental needs trust. It's a discretionary trust in your will to provide for your beneficiary after you're gone without that money causing problems for government benefits. So that was a long-winded answer to yes, testamentary trusts are irrevocable.